changing with it. We have to, right? We hear a lot about celebrities and the stories of what they've overcome. I wanted to do a show that highlights some of the not so well known overcomers and what can happen if we just keep going. The New York Times called today's guest the inexhaustible Mr. Herman. If the name holds true, I guess it tells the story as to why he's yet making moves across the country.
I was going to be a writer.
It never dawned on him that he'd become a professional dancer, but that he did. When the doctors diagnosed him, they said that he wouldn't be able to feed himself, clothe himself, and that he'd need assistance for pretty much everything that he did. But when he walked the runway in New York's Fashion Week, he did what millions dream of. They said he wouldn't, but he became a model, an ambassador for the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, and a strong advocate for disabled athletes and performers. They didn't tell him that having a mind to just keep going would get him on the cover of magazines or performing in venues such as Lincoln Center and the Whitney Museum of Art. When you watch him perform, you are watching audacity in its brilliance. This is Jerron Herman. All right. I do appreciate you being on with me today. Very
My
much so.
pleasure.
So let's jump right in. Let me ask you what your thoughts are. First off, what your thoughts are about what you're doing right now.
Well, my major thoughts about what I'm doing right now are like, how can I do it? I'm in a place where I am gainfully employed, walking in my passions. I am making my own work. I'm exploring different facets of the things that I've always wanted to explore. I'm being supported by friends and family, and I have a good artistic community around me. So I just feel I'm just really in wonder about everything that's kind of going on professionally with all the work that I'm doing right now.
So why don't you just take a minute to tell us how you got into what it is you're doing and kind of explain exactly what you're doing.
Sure. So I'm a professional dancer, and but I'm not a typical professional dancer. I also
Mm-hmm.
write. I curate panels. I mentor. I did I also say I write?
Yes.
um, I do a multitude of things. And it's so strange because like people, my peers who are in companies or teaching classes, and they're also dancers, like they're not always doing the things that I'm doing. There's a way in which people who have been training since they were 3 years old to do a certain thing, stay in that thing and do it really well. But the question is, how do you branch out? And so for me, I was invited into dance, and I didn't have an initial desire to be a dancer. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to work in the arts, and I always wanted to be a part of that community. But I didn't want to do explicitly dance. I mean, I never even really thought that I would be this deep in my career with it. And yeah, I was invited by happenstance. I was working as a theater education apprentice, like around my sophomore year of college. A choreographer who was also a teaching artist at the time was doing this week long intensive on dance, and so as the apprentice, you have to go in and
Right.
support whoever's in the studios. And so I just kind of took a leap. I didn't really know what to expect. I just thought it would be interesting anecdote to be like, oh yeah, I helped the choreographer out for a week. And this guy, his name is Sean Curran, and I kind of call him like my fairy godfather because he kind of just like plucked and dropped me really easily. But yeah, he told me initially that he didn't need an assistant. He wanted a participant. And he didn't know my background, he didn't know anything. And so I just dropped in and explored and did the activities that he was having other people do. And so it was like fun. I was like getting
Right.
paid to already have fun. Like that already was like, okay, this is wild.
The best job. That's the best job.
Right?
It's the best job.
So, oh my gosh, I tell you, Thursday, he hands me a ringing phone. It's my lunch break, and he hands me a ringing phone. On the other line is the woman that I would have worked with for 8 years as a dancer, Heidi
Wow.
Lavsky. And so he introduced me to her. And the next week, I was in a studio auditioning for her. And after that audition, she asked me to join her company, and we were off to the races. Yeah, with Heidi, it was like I was learning literally on the job. I was learning what a tendu was. I was learning five, six, seven, eight. I was learning
Right.
how to count. I was
Right.
learning all these. I was also again getting paid for gigs and
Wow.
traveling, and I was like the baby member of like a cast of six, and I was like 20, 21, and everyone else was like in their 30s. So it was
Wow.
also I was one of the only disabled people in the cast at the time, and so that was like also really intriguing, because I knew so little, and so I just grew. I just grew with that company, and eventually started to again make my own work. And I've joined another company since then, or in this collective. It's not really even a company, it's a collective of independent artists
Right.
who are coming together and doing their own thing. So
Very interesting story because it's like, there are people who have been dancing all of their lives, who set
yeah,
out to be dancers, who don't get that kind of opportunity. So
yeah.
you didn't set out for dance. What did you want to be when you were
hmm
younger?
I was going to be a writer. I was already going to New York City when I was 8 years old to become a writer for either the stage and TV, or the stage and not really I wasn't really feeling film at the time. Be at a publishing house, or be a part of a magazine. Yeah, that was early on, and it was spurred on by another teacher and another invitation. In third grade, I really loved storytelling, and my family's very artistic and gregarious and all of
Uh,
that, and so I really needed to find my own voice. Um, my brother was a big influence because he was a, a major actor. He was a big star at the time,
okay.
and so I really wanted to do something comparable, but not following. And so he was the actor, so I would be the writer. And so I just came up with this fantasy in my mind that I would be the one to write for him, write things that he could do on stage, and that was a way I could be in the community. It was around high school that I was
Okay.
like, okay, it was other people saying like, oh, I've never seen someone on Broadway with cerebral palsy, or I've never seen someone in a movie with cerebral palsy. So around that time, I was already crafting like this. Okay, I'm going to New York. I'm going to study. Maybe I do want to do acting as well, but I'd already kind of etched out a writing career
Okay.
because I might encounter discrimination out there.
You knew early that you wanted to go to New York. Um, what was it that told you you could do that?
I've always been against the grain. Um, so I'm stubborn.
Okay.
I'm a little hard headed. I like to see something come to fruition before I give up on it. Like I really want to. You got to tell me it's dead before I really accept it. And even then, there's resurrection. So,
Right. So you can say whatever you want to say.
and I think I just had a really big chip on my shoulder. I needed to. I really needed to. I needed to create my own life.
Mm.
Early on, I was given all of these things that I could not do diagnostically. That just never that continued to fall by the wayside. Like they said, I wouldn't be able to clothe myself, and here I am clothing myself. They told me it. So I was seeing these things literally drop off, like these things that they said I couldn't do. So I was led with, okay, then who is telling me I can't do something? And let me question.
Right,
Let me question.
right.
And so yeah, New York was the biggest factor in like faith leap, because it was unprecedented territory, uncharted. Um, it was something I was going to be doing independently.
And I guess my thought too is having a disability. A lot of people can feel like they really need to be codependent. And you decided I'm going to go all the way across the country by myself and do what I
Yeah.
want to do and make a life for myself. And I'm going to create it. And don't anybody tell me what it needs to look like. Can you share with us just a little bit about what cerebral palsy actually is, diagnostically, and what are some of the limitations that doctors will tell you that you're going to have, and maybe encourage some people who are dealing with um, cerebral palsy themselves, and then also maybe have family members or friends, because it's always a good thing to have someone that's going through something to talk back, because they inspire other people, and that's what we're doing here on this show for Just Keep
Hmm.
Going. That's what we're doing,
Hmm.
is trying to inspire people to recognize, don't stop, keep going.
Right.
So if you could
Yeah.
address that for me.
Totally. So, cerebral palsy is a neurological, neuromuscular disorder, that affects the voluntary movement of limbs, and it begins from uh, synaptic nerves in the brain misfiring signals to your muscles.
Okay.
So with your brain, like the hemispheres, of the brain, I always get this wrong. My right, my right hemisphere telling my left arm to, like, open the hand, for example, and that signal, I'm thinking it, but the signals are misfiring, so it's not happening.
Okay.
Or and so then what manifests is like usual tightness or spasticity, and dystonia, which is a quality of muscle activation that is uh, sporadic. And some of the things that, children, this is also an adolescent disorder. Like you are diagnosed within the first year of being born, the first year of living, and treatment usually spans up until like 16. So even like there's a phenomenon around like what does an adult with CP look like and act
Okay.
like and deal with, and so the medical field isn't really equipped to answer those questions. So actually, I'm starting to be a part of like some task forces and some, like, other writers who are trying to answer those questions.
Okay.
What is it like to be an adult with CP? So what a lot of us have been told and have experienced is like the kind of a litany of things you can't do on your own. You know, feeding yourself, clothing yourself, walking without assistance. What to your point about codependence, I mean, it's ingrained in diagnosis, right? Like
Right.
you will need assistance. Like, and that's, so a lot of my other disabled friends were trying to think through like how care doesn't have to be a dirty word. What is the agency in care?
Right.
And what is that what's that feeling? Because you will need it, but you're also still in, how do you retain your independence while you're getting
Right.
care?
Right.
So yeah.
Did your parents cater to you a lot, or
They did not.
home life?
Oddly enough, my parents did early on. They did some really radical intervention work for me, like keeping me away from unnecessary surgeries that people would say I needed, like to cut my ligaments or to like short like fix my feet, my foot. Like they're like nah. And so to now when when I'm hanging with other friends who have CP and I tell them I've never had a surgery, they like look at me weird. They're like, what? You're a unicorn. And so I go back to my family like, y'all don't know what you did implicitly. They gave me the same parenting they gave my older brother. They did not. They gave me the same responsibilities. I had to pick up after myself. I had to learn how to wash dishes. I had to learn how to do all of these things. And then we really got excited about the ways that I adapted to different things. So, how living independently became like a game, became a very interesting, an interesting part of our lives where we're just trying to figure out how to do the same thing differently.
Do you use the term disability?
I say disability. I think it's a political and cultural word, as well as being a diagnosis. There's like a whole culture of different folks that look like me and operate like me in the world, across the world. That there's this culture, that bubbles up from the kinds of things that we do, that we similarly do, and are having this like umbrella of disability is I'm able to really locate and just kind of center a lot of my artworks, a lot of my thinkings, because then it's not like I am, how to say, like I'm not, when I dance, for example, I'm not dancing in spite, right? In spite of like how my body is, but I'm also not dancing outside of what my body is. So like naming it disabled dance is like for me really powerful because it's saying that there's a history, there's a culture, and so all these it's very much like African American, Black, all the what is the moniker and um how's that why would you use certain words, and I think that I use it because I'm acknowledging a history, good and bad, with the word. Two, I was very young when I really kind of felt I felt my disability immediately because of social interaction, and seeing difference and noticing difference. Um, and I think that my reactions are just that, they're reactive. Like a lot of the things that I did was in reaction to what I was given, like from peers and from random people on the street. I had to answer questions early on. So, what is hemiplegia, cerebral palsy? Like an
Right.
8-year-old having to, explain that is it's kind of hard, kind of
Right.
rough day at the monkey bars. So I grew early coping mechanisms for that, and I grew early early tactics to attack that and to be ready for that, which made me more mature early on. I kind of feel like I had to be mature my whole life, to
Right.
kind of deal with everything. And so with that, I think maybe that's why I do have I give myself allowance to dream as I do and to push it a little bit, because I'm like, I have to be on point from day one,
Right.
so give me my space to be daring a little bit, to
Right.
switch it up. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about what was the
Sure.
time that you feel like you were at your lowest point?
So I had gotten into NYU, Tisch School of the Arts,
Okay.
and it was my first semester there. And I mean, this was like chefs for playwriting.
Okay.
hmm And so I was there, and the money for the first semester came through,
Okay.
like through some amazing, amazing uh, just networks and God stuff. And I remember um, getting the notice that I had to leave and calling my dad the same day and just crying on the phone in the street.
In the
Uh,
bathroom, on the
oh
corner.
God. I was so upset. It was the lowest point because it was as much as I wanted to make something happen myself, it had limits. And so I was very shook by that. And also I had to leave my dream school. I had to leave what I thought was going to be my, track to success and to being an artist. And so I was really out of it.
Okay, so
Mhm.
how did you recover?
Mm. So the school I graduated from, the King's College, I had emailed them because they were recruiting me the same time NYU was, and we had a conversation about me going there, but I thought NYU would have been better. King's is also in New York
Okay.
City, small Christian school, and I transferred there the following semester, um, and just started to heal. I was in school, and I knew if I stayed in New York City, I would find a path. If I stayed in the environment that I wanted to be in, I didn't care the school. I didn't care about what I was exactly doing.
Right.
I just knew that I would the environment would keep me afloat.
Now, did I hear something also about you having to leave Kings also at some point
Oh,
abruptly?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I sure did too. But this time I had my debt absolved by the president of the college. That was really wild. So I was able to graduate.
It is amazing how we set our course to do certain things. We've got places where we just have to be. No, I can't be
Yeah.
there. I have to be this place.
As we were going to school, in parallel, in tandem, like some people dropped out, some people didn't finish, some people didn't continue doing what they went to school for, and just like
Right.
that realization that yeah, like there are so many that it's not all that you think it is at the same time. Taking some of that power out of individual things is so important to keep going.
So, Jerron, my last question for you is what kind of legacy are you looking to leave in the earth? We're all going to leave here. What type of legacy are you trying to leave behind? Gotcha, huh?
Mm. I mean, just when you said that we're all gonna leave here, I just had a very visceral reaction
Oh, wow.
to death. Just like it really did hit
Wow.
me. Because I don't often think about it. I really don't. I really don't think about death. Um, but my legacy, I would want to leave is what it feels like to be free, what it feels like to free yourself, what it feels like to yeah, be fully extended and um as best you can. Yeah. And that when that happens, you experience that joy, you experience that connection, you experience a host of things that are just additive to a life. But it starts with, yeah, unshackling yourself, becoming unfettered, all of these words that are, you know, akin to bondage, right? Like just breaking free. And I think for me, it's very, very personal, but it it does float for other people. Like we've all been given limitations that are not necessarily limitations to the same scale, but like we've all been told where our placement is, what we're able to do, what we're allowed to do. There are a host of things that are external that dictate to us. I'm about dictating to it. So
Pretty cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. I am ecstatic. I mean, just ecstatic that you decided that you would do this interview with me and share with the world, who you
Mm,
are in your life and what you're doing and what makes you you, and to
mm.
inspire them to just keep going. So, thank you so much for being on with us today. And
My
I
pleasure.
can't wait to continue to see all of the things that you are doing from now on. I mean, I know that there's
Yay.
still greater coming, so I'm ecstatic
Yeah.
to see that.
Mm,
And I will definitely
thank
be celebrating you all the way.
Thank you.
You're
So good
welcome.
to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
I'm in the moment and I'm dancing, I feel this calm that I've got this. Everything is working together and then some. Dance has relieved me of a stereotype that is placed on people with disabilities.
Thank you for watching this episode of Just Keep Going. If you'd like, you can find more of this interview at toyahawkins.com.